Oklahoma with freedom. And you're listening to it. Your 100,000-watt talker is the new Freedom 96.9 and freedom969.com. Freedom
weather.
Here's your Oklahoma City AccuWeather forecast. Today will be mostly sunny and hot as the temperature reaches a high of 103, approaching the record high of 104 set back in 1922. Expect breezy conditions this afternoon. Tonight will be mostly clear with a low of 73. Tomorrow will be partly sunny and hot with a high of 100, becoming breezy in the afternoon. Looking ahead to Monday, expect partly sunny skies, windy conditions, and lower humidity with a high of 106. With your Oklahoma City AccuWeather forecast, I'm meteorologist Jason Caterino.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast are solely those of the speakers and other contributors. These views and opinions do not necessarily represent those of this station. The new Freedom 96.9, Oklahoma's talk radio.
Broadcasting live from the command center of Freedom 96.9 in Oklahoma City, it's a special election edition of McRoof Fortifies, Oklahoma. I'm Rick Allen Lippert here with Hague Certified Master Level Damage Inspector, Oklahoma Licensed Public Adjuster, Fortified Evaluator, and IBHS Fortified Roofing Contractor, Scott McCullum.
Hey, good morning, sir.
Scotty McCullum has the day off, so we can bring you a special program this morning. More about that in a moment. We are live streaming today on the McRoof Fortifies Oklahoma YouTube channel, and we're streaming the audio on freedom969.com. Now, we won't have our usual bits we do today because we're devoting the whole show to the two candidates for the Republican primary runoff election for State Insurance Commissioner.
Yes, sir.
They each will have 15 uninterrupted minutes to tell their story. The order was determined yesterday. Scott will tell you more about that. We'll start with Bob Sullivan, then we'll finish with Marty Quinn. But before I turn it over to Scott and the guys, I have to say S&CM LLC, doing business as McRoof.us, legally operates under Oklahoma registration number 80000002, and that the registration applies to both residential and commercial roofing.
There you go. All right, so I want to tell you folks, first of all, really, really excited that Bob and Marty were willing to do this morning. You know how important I believe the race for insurance commissioner is. I think it's one of the most important races on the ballot this year. And we also know that the Republican runoff election is extremely critical to who ultimately will possibly become our insurance commissioner. Now, Rick mentioned that we established the order yesterday. I want to tell you that in the interest of fairness, the way we did this, we did a virtual coin toss.
Yes.
And the way that we did this is Thursday morning, Mr. Lippert sent me a number between 1 and 10. About 15 or 20 minutes later, Bob sent me a number between 1 and 10, and yesterday morning, Marty Quinn sent me a number between 1 and 10. Rick's number was 9.
That's
Bob's
right.
number was 3, and Marty's number was 4. So that put Marty closest to. Marty was offered the choice of going first or second, chose to go second, so that put Bob first. That's how we did that. So letting you know, because of FCC regulations, we will make sure we will have everything on a timer when we bring Bob on the air. The timer will begin when he hangs up or gets interrupted by the bottom of the hour network break. We will stop the timer. That will establish exactly the amount of time that we will allocate for Marty in the second half of the show. So that's how we'll do that. Mr. Lippert will give me a 5-minute warning that we will share with each of the candidates, and then he will give me another 1-minute warning so they can close out. I've asked them basically to take this time just to set the stage. Want them to tell you who they are, why they're in this race, the problems that they see, and the solutions that they offer. This is not a debate. This is an open mic for these two candidates to state their case. So with that, we're ready to bring Bob Sullivan online. Bob, are you there?
I'm here. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, sir. Again, Bob, thank you so much for agreeing to do this. And the microphone is yours, sir.
Well, again, it's my pleasure to be here with you guys. Good morning. My name is Bob Sullivan, candidate for Oklahoma Insurance Commissioner. A little about myself. I'm a fourth-generation Oklahoman, lived my entire life here in this beautiful state and called it home my entire life. Spent 20 years in the insurance industry. Started my career fresh out of OSU as an underwriter, middle market underwriter, commercial insurance underwriter for Hanover Insurance. And, learned the industry from the inside out, all the technical expertise that one can learn. I think the underwriting field is a great place to begin. You learn how to price coverage, analyze risk, dissect some pretty dry and complicated coverage forms. But what you don't count on learning in that process is how insurance companies view the policyholders, their ultimate customers in the state of Oklahoma. And what I saw and what I learned, I wasn't really very happy with. Seeing that Oklahoma was viewed as a flyover state and a regulatory environment where they could do whatever they wanted, basically. And that broke my heart and put a bad taste in my mouth. So in about 2.5 years, I left Hanover and became an independent agent in 2010. And love being an independent agent. Work with business owners, homeowners, farmers, ranchers all across this state and also in about 13, 15 other states. But like helping people manage risk and like having conversations and changing the idea that, insurance is a maintenance plan and getting them focused on managing personal risk in their everyday lives. It's been a very fulfilling career. But ultimately, like many people in the state of Oklahoma, realize that premiums keep going up, and Oklahoma is now in the position where we have the highest homeowners rates, and I would argue some of the highest commercial property rates in the country. And looking into why that is, there's a litany of reasons. Some insurance companies believe it's our weather. Some insurance companies think it's our litigation marketplace. But ultimately, I'm of the mind that what you measure matters. And I mentioned earlier on that Oklahoma, as a regulatory environment, was very kind to the insurance companies. They didn't have to justify much of anything with the insurance department here in our state. And I think as such, they've kind of rode roughshod over citizens of the state of Oklahoma with higher than needed homeowners rates. So got into this race, certainly never really been politically active in that sense. This is my first campaign, first office that I've ever sought, frankly, because I think the time is now for someone with my kind of background, the breadth and depth of experience that being an independent agent has afforded me, and taking those skills and that knowledge to the OID for the benefit of the citizens of Oklahoma. And we've put together a plan. We've had a plan to fix this, in my mind, broken, non-competitive marketplace since the beginning of the campaign. Luckily, the state legislature did us a favor and passed House Bill 3781, which is going to change that regulatory environment to afford the insurance commissioner some greater authority to push back on insurance companies and challenge their methodology and make them show their methodology, I would say, for how they justify the rates and the premiums they're going to charge policyholders in our state. It's not a silver bullet by any means. We've got about 11 to 15 other levers that we're going to have to pull in that first year and in the subsequent years to restore that competition and frankly, restore the trust with policyholders in the state of Oklahoma in the insurance marketplace. You don't have to look too hard to find a ton of controversy regarding how people have been treated by insurance companies, allegedly, and that's a troubling thing. And I think that erodes the bedrock of trust that insurance policies and that relationship has to be built upon. People pay premiums faithfully, month in, month out, year in and year out to their insurance provider, and then when they have a claim, to turn around and find an adversary on the other end of that relationship and someone who's going to be fighting them because they don't want to pay what their policy says they should, that's a big problem. And I think all of these legal issues with some of the major insurance providers in our state are a symptom of a lack of leadership at the insurance commissioner level in the state of Oklahoma. I'm not saying Glenn Mulready's a bad man. I think quite the opposite. He's a fantastic human being. We just have to have stronger leadership that focuses on the consumer in this relationship, because the insurance commissioner exists to be that watchdog for the consumer and not be too cozy with the insurance carriers and the companies that write the coverage. And we made that point very clear throughout our campaign. We committed to accepting zero campaign contributions, $0 from insurance companies or their executives. That's an ethical conflict of interest that I have no interest in pursuing. I like my sleep at night. I want to know that the decisions I make and the conversations I have as the insurance commissioner in Oklahoma are not influenced, and I have no bias based on their contribution or their support of my candidacy. So ultimately, this is a passion project for me. I don't have any other political aspirations. There's not a Senate seat I covet or another political stepping stone. My role and my mission is to come into the insurance department for 4 to 8 years, God willing, and leave in 8 years with a much more sustainable, viable, and vibrant insurance market that's fairer to the citizens of Oklahoma, and go right back to doing what I've been doing. I love being an agent. I love working with clients. I love the process of helping business owners and homeowners manage risks and protect what they've worked so hard to build throughout their lives. It's a tall order, but something we're very committed to. I'm grateful to the state of Oklahoma. This has been a fun process, man. As I said before, I'm a rookie on the campaign trail, but not a rookie to driving around the state of Oklahoma. I've got clients in all 4 corners of the state. But going about the state for this purpose has been exceptionally fulfilling and frankly kind of fun. Getting to hear people's concerns, know that what we're doing is going to help them, and seeing the buy-in from people all across the state has just been a tremendously fulfilling and rewarding process. But, I don't know if you guys have any questions for me. I wanted
Bob,
to give you an opportunity.
I do. I appreciate it very much. Thanks for laying that out.
Hey, Scott, before you
Yep,
get into
absolutely.
that question, let me just remind the listeners that that you are listening to McRoof Fortifies Oklahoma on Freedom 96.9. We're having a special election edition today. We're listening currently to Bob Sullivan. He's one of the 2 candidates for the Republican runoff election for insurance commissioner.
So, Bob, get into your platform just a little bit. Get into some of the hows. You've talked a little bit about what you're trying to solve and some of the issues you see. Get into your hows, please.
Sure. Yeah, so the plan, and it's available on our website. If anyone wants to log on at votebobsullivan.com/plan. And really, it begins ultimately, point number 1 is transparency. And I think House Bill 3781 is a key component of that. Having insurance companies have to open up their books and justify with real actuarial data that's going to be verified by Oklahoma's own actuaries. We're going to have to do some hiring in that vein. But justifying the rates, I think that's going to be key to restoring some consumer confidence. And bringing competition back into the state, bringing additional companies that may not ride in the state of Oklahoma, working in some other states, certainly has given me a strong sense of what our hunt list looks like for bringing additional companies into the state that operate in our neighboring states, but for one reason or another haven't come to Oklahoma. We've got a recruiting job to do in that sense. And making sure that those are companies that are going to live up to the promise of their policies and do what they say they're going to do. A-rated carriers, that's a financial metric, and we certainly want them to be financially stable. But beyond that, we also want to make sure that the consumer confidence is strong and that the claims paying reputation is strong. We've mentioned, multiple times everyone wants to talk about tort reform in the state of Oklahoma. It's a frequent political football that gets bandied around. The difficulty with tort reform to restore our sustainability of our legal system, it's just something that I think is a bit of a waste of time in some senses, because our state Supreme Court tends to kick out most of the meaningful tort reform that the legislature passes. I tend to focus in my campaign and what we intend to do on third-party litigation funding, which is a mechanism that gives some people in the plaintiff's bar a blank check to try cases that probably otherwise wouldn't be tried. bogs down the legal system. They're just throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks in hopes of getting $20,000-$30,000 settlements, back to back to back. And those funds exist because.
Hey, Bob, excuse me, Bob, just let me let you know you're just a little under 5 minutes right now.
Fantastic. Those funds exist, and they're so successful financially because those proceeds from settlements are not treated with any kind of tax penalty. They're basically tax-free money, and that's why you're seeing those litigation funds outperform the S&P 500 in many cases. So there's been great efforts at the federal level to close that tax loophole. I think if we can be successful in that, we'll see the tide of frivolous claims, frivolous lawsuits dry up to some degree. I'm also in favor of banning the practice outright in the state of Oklahoma. North Carolina was successful in doing that a month ago. I think that's something that we can hop on the bandwagon for. But probably more germane to this audience and is really focusing on the fortified building program in Oklahoma. Big fan of it. I want to see it expanded. The limitations we have right now with how many people can apply to the program each and every quarter. I want to see that expanded upward. And ultimately, if we can focus on the overall risk profile of the state of Oklahoma from wind and hail and see claim frequency go down, we're going to be much more successful in recruiting and attracting those new insurance companies into our state, because they're going to view us as a state that's managing risk properly. But beyond that, I think the real secret sauce is going to be something like a deductible and a disaster savings account, something that Oklahomans can keep money on their own personal balance sheet rather than sending every bit of their money off to insurance companies and funding the wind hail deductibles that many people are likely retaining, whether they know it or not. Wind and hail deductibles are a significant risk that people are taking, and often without a funding mechanism to pay for them when the roof claim comes.
Correct.
Creates a massive credit risk in the system from the contractor side, from the insurance company side. I've talked to a lot of bankers that have now become aware of this throughout conversations with me, and their eyes are opened to how much risk that people in their loan portfolios are taking on. And we need to have a funding mechanism for that. So think of a health savings account with your high deductible health plans. I would like to see a program where pre-tax dollars can be contributed into those plans, either from an employer or from the policyholder. It can grow in a tax-free investment vehicle, and then if it's utilized for that deductible spend or for preventative maintenance, like preemptively re-roofing your house or cutting back trees to keep the trees off the house or from falling into the property, those kind of expenses, those risk management expenses, could be done in a tax-advantaged way as well. That changes the way we view risk in Oklahoma, and I think that's a meaningful step in ensuring the long-term viability of our insurance market. We could go on and on and on. We're going to focus on strengthening fire protection, coordinating with first responders throughout the state, both in fire protection sense and with law enforcement to crack down on uninsured drivers. There's a lot to do. Ultimately, we're talking about a role that has a very broad reach.
It's a big job. Big job.
We regulate property appraisers. We regulate and license bail bondsmen in the state of Oklahoma. There's a lot of things that you don't commonly associate with the insurance commissioner.
And 1 minute left, Bob.
So, Bob, in 1 minute, just tell the voters right now what you would say to them as your closing argument for why they should vote for Bob Sullivan on Tuesday.
Absolutely. I think you need to look for a candidate who has the wherewithal and the willingness to stand up for Oklahomans and fight alongside you to ensure that Oklahoma insurance is going to be a fair and equitable marketplace and be consumer focused. I'm bringing the greatest breadth and depth of experience among any candidate, and ultimately, I think that's the kind of skill set that you need. And we need an insurance commissioner who's going to fight and advocate for the consumer, be a watchdog for the consumer, not a lapdog for the big insurance providers that we're just blessed to have in our state. And ultimately, I believe that I'm that man, and would encourage everybody to vote Bob Sullivan on August 25th, or for the remaining time of early voting that's available today. And I would be honored to be the next insurance commissioner in the state of Oklahoma.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, gentlemen. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, sir.
You've been listening to Republican candidate for insurance commissioner, one of the two primary candidates for the runoff that happens this Tuesday, Bob Sullivan. We will hear from his opponent, Marty Quinn, after the news break at the bottom of the hour. I'd like to remind everybody that the runoff election, the primary runoff election, is this Tuesday.
And as he said, there is early voting going on.
Early
right
voting,
now.
concludes today. I forget exactly what time.
1 or 2 o'clock.
Yeah, pretty early in the afternoon. But Tuesday, the polls will be open from 7 to 7. You will need your photo ID and or your voter ID card. That requires that the name on your proof of identity substantially conforms to the voter's name in the precinct registry.
Conforms,
Doesn't have to be exact. It has to, you have to
Yeah.
be able to convince someone. In addition to insurance commissioner, we're also voting in the Republican primary for governor, superintendent of public instruction, and commissioner of labor. There are a couple of state questions on the ballot, and then depending on where you live, there may be legislative, district, or county offices and propositions.
I think when people really take a look at that, the understand kind of we live in ground zero of the most severe convective storm environment on the face of the planet.
You bet.
You have got to understand how critically important the insurance commissioner race is, and I believe secondarily to that, probably the attorney general's race in terms of shaping our future as respects property restoration, insurance, all of that kind of thing. Critical election right now, folks.
That's right. So in the 3 minutes we have left, let's go ahead and run. Oh no, that's the.
What did you do?
Well, I was going to run the Roof RX commercial.
Go right ahead. Yeah, go right ahead, Randy.
They're tied together.
Every property owner knows the pain of rising insurance costs, higher premiums, higher deductibles, and more exclusions than ever before. You may have even received a non-renewal notice or a letter stating your roof no longer meets our underwriting requirements and your policy will be canceled in 30 days. You don't know the condition of your roof, you're not a roofer, but neither does the underwriter, and they're making decisions that affect your coverage. Roof RX brings clarity to where uncertainty once lived. We're not roofers looking for work. We're certified inspectors dedicated to truth and transparency. We combine state-of-the-art imaging with generations of roofing expertise to reveal the true condition of your roof and maximize its remaining life. We turn complex data into a clear prescription: what can be maintained, what needs repaired, and what needs replaced. We perform and document that work for you and your insurance carrier and provide the peace of mind of lifetime workmanship warranties and money-back guarantees. It's not about replacing roofs. It's about helping you understand the true condition of your roof, mitigate your risk, and protect your insurability. Roof RX, the prescription for your ailing roof.
McRoof Fortifies, Oklahoma. We will be joining Marty Quinn. He is one of the Republican candidates for insurance commissioner, taking part in the primary runoff election on Tuesday. We just heard his opponent, Bob Sullivan, talk for 15 minutes. We will hear Marty talk for 15 minutes, or exactly 14 minutes and 58 seconds.
There you
according
go.
to our clock. Once again, this is a special election edition of McRoof Fortifies Oklahoma, because the Insurance Commission office is so important to the industry of restoration and roofing. Scott is giving these two candidates time to present their cases. Isn't that right, Scott?
That's it, man. This is the race for me on the ballot this year. It's critical.
So that is at on Tuesday from 7 to 7. Be sure you go vote. It's vitally important. So McRoof Fortifies Oklahoma. We'll be back for the second half with Marty Quinn after the news.
The best way to stay up to date on the issues that impact your life is to listen to the new Freedom 96.9 at freedom969.com. Mornings at noon and on the way home from work. Oklahoma's Talk Radio. Freedom
Weather.
Here's your Oklahoma City AccuWeather forecast. Today will be mostly sunny and hot as the temperature reaches a high of 103, approaching the record high of 104 set back in 1922. Expect breezy conditions this afternoon. Tonight will be mostly clear with a low of 73. Tomorrow will be partly sunny and hot with a high of 100, becoming breezy in the afternoon. Looking ahead to Monday, expect partly sunny skies, windy conditions, and lower humidity with a high of 106. With your Oklahoma City AccuWeather forecast, I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast are solely those of the speakers and other contributors. These views and opinions do not necessarily represent those of this station. The new Freedom 96.9, Oklahoma's Talk Radio.
McRoof Fortifies Oklahoma back on the air for the second half of this morning's live special election edition of our show. In the first half hour, we heard Bob Sullivan. He's one of the Republican candidates for the Insurance Commissioner primary runoff election. That primary runoff election happens on Tuesday. The polls are open from 7 to 7. And, you have to have your voter ID and all of that. We will be hearing from Marty Quinn in just a minute, but to remind folks who may have tuned in later, like I said, this is a special election edition. Scott has invited both of the candidates on to give them 15 minutes each. Bob took 14 minutes and 58
seconds. Yeah. So that's what Marty will get.
Marty will get that
absolutely.
as well. And the order of presentation was determined by a virtual coin toss, so to speak. The last couple of days, I emailed Scott a number. He asked me to email him a number between 1 and 10. I sent him 9. Bob sent in 3. Marty sent in 4. So Marty got to choose which position he wanted, and he chose to go second. And so that's where we are now. So we're about ready to go to Marty. Scott,
okay.
You have something?
Yep. The only thing that I want to lay out there is that the only question that I really asked Bob during his time was around his platform, what his solutions were. And so I will try to make sure that that's the only question that I might possibly ask Marty if he doesn't go through that, okay? So
all right.
we're ready to bring
and
Marty on.
Before we start the timer, I just want to remind you, we'll give you a 5-minute cue and a 1-minute cue. And hello, Marty, are you there?
Yes. Good morning to everybody.
Hey,
Thank you very
Marty.
much for the opportunity.
You're very welcome. We're glad to have you here. So the microphone is yours, sir.
That's a dangerous option there, Scott. We appreciate it, no kidding, but we feel like that the issues that are in Oklahoma currently obviously revolve around rates. And when we started our messaging, probably 15, 16 months ago, we were traveling the western side of the state, and we found out real quick that it wasn't just about rates, it was about consumer protection. And I actually believe at this point that consumer protection is just as big, if not bigger, than the rate side of things. And so we're going to make the consumers our focus in making sure that promises that are made by companies are promises kept, making sure that we're doing everything that we can to help on the rate side of things. But, if I could snap my fingers and reduce your rates by 50%, if you still wasn't getting your claims paid, I wouldn't be doing all that I could do for you. So it's our intent, because of our experience, to protect the consumer as best that we can, find ways to resolve the issues that have been in Oklahoma the last few years. And people are truly hurting. When you factor in, the property tax, when you factor in the insurance, it's one of those things when you talk to realtors and bankers, they're finding more and more people that just can't afford to buy the home because of those expenses that are there. And our background is the most experienced background of anybody in the race. We started out our career with Shelter Insurance. We were with them for about 39 years. We were fortunate to be on the agent side of things. We were blessed to be on the management side of things for almost 14 years. That job took us from our hometown in Dirks, Arkansas to Louisville, Kentucky, and we were there between 7 and 8 years. We were even more blessed to come to Claremore, Oklahoma in 1995, and we were still in the management program for another 6 years or so. In 2001, went back into the agency force. And to me, that's where my experience shines, is the fact that, we've spent the vast majority of our 40-plus year career in the agency side of things. We had experience in the independent agency side as an owner. We also had the captive side with Shelter Insurance, and I think that gives us the broadest base of knowing what's going on with the companies, with the options, and how consumers are treated. And so that experience was very blessed in this regard. It allowed us to get involved in the community of Claremore, with the school system, with the civics organizations, with the churches, with the average end of people out here that just go to work every day, want to earn a paycheck. And right now, those individuals that we had strong relationships with are hurting, and we got to find solutions. My experience, because of all the community activity that we had, it enabled us to go on to the legislative side. We were asked to run for the House of Representatives in 2010. Was fortunate to spend 4 years in the House. And that when you're looking at finding solutions, legislative experience is one of the biggest reasons why we start day one. We don't have to have a learning curve. That legislative experience is going to be extremely important. And you might ask, well, here's some examples of that. If you're talking to the roofers today, ask them what their workers' comp rate was back in 2010, 2011, 2012. And it is significantly different. And the reason for that is the legislature was under a different control for about a 20-year period of time. It still took Republicans, after they took over in 2010, about 3 years to get it passed. But I was a part of that program. I was someone who got to cast a vote in favor of those reforms. And I can give you one example of a company that was doing business then. Their premium base was about $700 million. And that premium base was reduced to less than $300 million. So where does that premium? Where does that money go? It goes back into the pocket of that roofing company. It goes back into that manufacturer. He hires additional employees, or he pays them better wages. It's his money that he made, and we've created an economic, a better economic condition because of the legislative experience that we've been a part of. House Bill 3781 is one of those areas that is going to go into effect in July of next year, and it's going to give us a little bit better depth or ability to look a little bit deeper into the actuarial side of these companies. And if the commissioner decides that he wants to object, then it gives him, I think, another 60 days to go through that process. The commissioner is already in the process of hiring additional actuaries. Those are expensive, but whatever it takes is what we've got to do, because when companies moving forward are going to ask for rate increases, we've got to be able to justify that to the consumers in every corner of this state. It can't be like it was. We have a trust issue right now on the insurance side. We've got to build that back, and I believe that we can. There's still a lot of good companies out there, but we've got to convince companies, if you're going to do business in the state, you're going to have to do what your contractual obligations have said. So legislative experience is key to us helping the consumer, and I'm the only one in the race that has that. We've talked a lot about rates, for example, and so how are we going to? I know, Scott, this was one of the things that you ask, and I'll be glad to answer any question that you have. I don't have anything to hide, but how we're going to do that, I want to speak specifically to the roofers, and we've talked to a number of roofers across the state. And the roofing industry is one of the oldest industries in our state, but it's not any different than many other businesses, is that from time to time you have bad actors. And it's those bad actors, not the industry, that we've got to clean up. I think the vast majority of that comes from out of state. I've been a part of conversations with municipal leagues and the municipalities, the counties, law enforcement. We've got to get in front of those individuals that when we have those hailstorms or those significant tornadoes, that there is a process. If you're going to do business in Oklahoma, there's going to be a permitting or a certification process that says you are a good roofer. You're going to not tear down a respectable industry, or you're not going to destroy or take advantage of the less fortunate in our state. There's
Hey, Marty.
Yes, sir.
Marty, let me just jump in and remind our viewers that they're listening to McRoof Fortifies Oklahoma. We're having a special election edition of the show today. We're listening to Marty Quinn. He is one of the Republican candidates for the Insurance Commission office for Tuesday's primary runoff election. Take it away, Marty.
I forgot everything that I was going to tell you.
Oh, sorry about that.
I just kidding. I'm just kidding. We've talked to a lot of those entities that I just mentioned, and we've got to get them on board to where we have a system that if you want to come in during those most vulnerable times, there's going to be a way that if you transact in a negative, harmful way to the citizens of Oklahoma, we're going to hold you accountable. If you're not in that permitting process, if you're not certified to where that so when you do bad work, for example, I know where you live, I know what where your information is, that we can go and hold you accountable, regardless of what state that you're living in. We want good roofing companies to flourish in Oklahoma, but for us to do that, we've got to make sure that we hold the bad actors accountable. And I think with the help of municipalities and counties and law enforcement, we can do that in short order. And I think it has to be one of the first things that we do when we get into office. Now, I think that there's other things, but we believe that consumer protection is first, and then we're going to have to work on reducing costs and making sure that we don't have fraudulent activity on the roofing side. Is going to be one of the areas that will help us the most. But our experience, I try to always get across to folks that I can talk about insurance experience, I can talk about legislative experience, but I believe the most experience that I have is on the consumer side. I've paid those premiums just like everybody else had. I've had the frustration with claims just like other people have. I have just as much incentive on the consumer side to work on consumer protection as anybody. Plus the fact that having that experience as a consumer, as an agent, as a manager, as a legislator, it's going to give me the ability to view a lot of perspectives and make sure that we do it the right way. We can't have a, quote, politically correct fix to this. We've got to find long-term solutions. And I'm more than capable.
Marty, I didn't want to interrupt you. You've got about 4 minutes left, okay?
Okay. No, that's fine. Thank you very much. House Bill 2933 was another piece of legislation that did not make it through the process. There's some things in that bill that we've got to go revisit. We want companies. I've gotten some bad press over saying this, but they always want to cut out a piece of what they want to run and make me look bad. But we've got to have companies that can be financially stable in Oklahoma, because when the bad storms come, they're going to have to start writing checks. And so we've got to have that competitive market. A lot of people talk about going out and recruiting new companies. We got all the companies that we need in the state of Oklahoma that are licensed to do business in Oklahoma and are sitting on the sidelines. one of the first things that I'm going to do is to contact those individual companies and say, hey, you're licensed to do business in the state. I need to know the reasons. Are you not financially strong enough? Is the market environment too difficult for you? And if it is, what's some things that we can do to get you into the market? Because every single time you increase the market with additional companies, prices start going down. If you don't believe that, one of the legal reforms that has happened in New York, Florida, Georgia, Louisiana, the legal reforms that are out there are going to have to take place in some form. We don't want to take away anybody's ability to sue, but we do want to reduce the frivolous lawsuits. USAA just announced about 5 or 6 weeks ago that they were giving back almost $1 billion to their insurance. Why were they doing that?
Right.
Legal expenses went down from $3.4 billion to $117 million. And so we've got to look at that. It's not the only way, but it is one of those ways that we've got to make sure that all options on the table for us to be able to get the consumer back to where they can afford a homeowner's policy. And then when they shell out that hard-earned money, that they know that company is going to be held accountable by me, the commissioner. And that'll be a number one goal of ours, to make sure that we restore that trust and encourage them to want to do business in the state. But if they're going to do that, the consumer is going to be the number one focus for me.
Well, the legislative reforms in Florida certainly changed the direction of that state. That's for sure.
Well, it's evidence financially, and one of the things that I left out was that almost immediately they had more companies coming back into the state.
Absolutely.
Almost immediately you started seeing companies filing for rate reductions, and it'll happen in Oklahoma. We want to do it the right way. We don't want to hurt anybody in the process, but something has to change about Oklahoma's pricing.
Marty, we're at that 1 minute mark. You've got 1 minute to just kind of sum up and state your case why people should check that box for Marty Quinn.
Well, I think, again, the biggest thing is I have more experience than anybody else in the race. My opponent is a good guy, but does not have the legislative experience that's going to be needed to change the way the commissioner operates. Not going to be able to change the way companies operate. We have those relationships. We have the ability to walk in there and do that. I think that's extremely important. But the fact is that our experience, as broad as it is, we are closer to the people than anybody in this race. We've been there for a lot longer time. We've been to about 65 different counties across the state, to many, many events, and that'll be the number one thing that we do with our consumer assistance program inside the commissioner's office.
Okay, Marty, that is it, 1458. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. Everyone, you're listening to McRoof Fortifies Oklahoma. This has been a special election edition of this morning's live show. We just heard Marty Quinn, one of the candidates for the Republican runoff for insurance commissioner. In the first half of the show, we heard Bob Sullivan. This show will repeat tomorrow on Sunday, and so
at 1 p.m.
At 1 p.m. and we'll be back here in just a couple of minutes to wrap up today's show. Homer Stacy was a wholesome, good American kid from Texas. At the age of 18, he enlisted in the United States Army Horse Cavalry and was stationed at Fort Bliss. Homer was fascinated with aircraft, so he went to flight school and became an Army Air Corps pilot. Homer Stacy flew a Convair B-24 Liberator, the Yankee Doodle Dandy, on November 11, 1943, when his crew, along with 31 other bombers, destroyed a ball-bearing plant in occupied France. On a return trip, a mechanical failure caused the Yankee Doodle Dandy to drop out of formation, leaving it vulnerable, and shortly thereafter, 7 German Me-109s shot down the plane near Andano, Italy. 4 crew members were killed on board, the others parachuted. 1 was captured and taken prisoner. Homer was among the remaining 5 who made it to Switzerland and returned to duty. Homer Stacy survived World War II, the Korean War, and retired after 23 years of service with many awards and commendations, including the Distinguished Flying Cross, the Purple Heart, and multiple Air Medals. Homer Stacy McCollum, Scott McCollum's dad. Scott McCollum is McRoof. McRoof.us is owned and operated by the McCollum family, an honorable, trustworthy red, white, and blue family. If you want to fortify your property, call McRoof.us at 405-877-4663. Ask for your complimentary roof inspection performed by a credentialed Hague residential inspector. McRoof.us, saving lives and protecting property by fortifying Oklahoma, one roof at a time. McRoof Fortifies Oklahoma, back on the air for the final segment of this morning's live special election edition of the show. We heard from Bob Sullivan in the first half of the show, Marty Quinn in the second half. Those guys are running for the office of Insurance Commissioner. They are the Republican candidates who are standing for election Tuesday in the primary runoff. Polls are open from 7 to 7 Tuesday. They're open until 1 or 2 today if you want to do, open to 2 o'clock today if you want to do early voting. Scott, what's your takeaway?
Oh, wow, man. That was awesome. I really appreciate both gentlemen agreeing to do that. I think it's good for our listeners, and excited that we're going to replay tomorrow afternoon. Typically, it's a week's delay on replays, but I got them to move that up to tomorrow because obviously the election's on Tuesday. So people that maybe just caught a few minutes this morning and think, hey, I'd like to know a little bit more, tomorrow afternoon at 1 o'clock. So that's the availability there. Few things, lots of stuff going on that I do want to get into a little bit related to insurance. And I will say this to folks: don't believe everything you're told, especially if it came from your insurance company. So I hope my candidates are still out there listening. Interesting situation this week where one of my clients called our office hotter than a
hornet.
hot, because they had just been told that a well-known company here in the state, one that's top of mind for a lot of people, had informed them that the Northgate Flex SBS modified Flex technology roof that we had just sold them was not eligible for a Class 4 discount.
Oh, you're kidding.
And so when this person insisted that, in fact, that it was Fortified approved and all this kind of thing, they continued to insist that it was not eligible because it had been removed from this company's list in 2022. So anyway, again, don't believe everything that someone tells you. Oh. All right. So simply, we got on and we downloaded some information. We sent it to them. We sent them the TDI list of approved products and a Texas Department of Insurance, a couple of other things. And within about an hour and a half, our client had their discount on their roof.
Good.
You know, just anyway, crazy. So.
Coming up also on Tuesday, it's a statewide election, it's not just for the Insurance Commission office. For the Republican ballot, there are runoffs for governor, superintendent of public instruction, and commissioner of labor. On the Democrat ballot will be just the U.S. Senate race, but they're on whether it's Democrat or Republican. Everybody gets to vote on the state questions, 844 and 846. And then depending on where you live, you may have legislative, district, or county offices and some propositions, again, depending on where you live. And let me just say personally, I can't stress enough how important it is to vote in every election. I know there's a huge not a huge. It's the opposite of huge. There's
Yeah, the
traditionally
opposite
a
of huge.
very low turnout
Right.
for August primary runoffs.
Right.
And I don't think there could be a more important election than the primary runoffs, because in this state, whoever wins that primary could quite possibly, ascend to that office.
That's exactly right. Now, here's another thing. I talked about insurance. California wildfire statewide requirements under consideration.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Lippert, thank you for sending that to me. So when we talk about these legislative changes and things that Marty was talking about, the Florida and the New York law changes that have changed the landscape of insurance, here's one to pay attention to, folks. California wildfire statewide requirements. If that passes legislatively, that becomes something that you are required to do.
And that could mean no shrubs up against the house.
It certainly will mean something less than what you have today.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Hey, before we run out of time, I need to say one more time that S&CM LLC, doing business as McRoof.us, legally operates under Oklahoma registration number 8000002, and that the registration applies to both residential and commercial roofing. Yes. I want to thank both of our candidates again, Bob Sullivan, Marty Quinn, for taking the time to be on the radio today. And thank you, Scott McCollum, for arranging this to happen.
Well, you're welcome. It's really, really, really important to me, and people know I'm passionate about this. I'm passionate about protecting people, saving lives, protecting property, and mitigating risks. That's my tagline. That's what I'm about as a human being. And these guys are, one of these guys is very likely to have a significant responsibility in that regard for the future of Oklahoma.
That's right.
So.
Yeah, Office of Insurance Commission is typically one of those less thought of, not a very important office. Oh, no, it couldn't be more important.
That's right.
All right, Dad's wisdom.
All right, there are only two ways to live your life. One is as though nothing is a miracle, and the other is as though everything is a miracle. Geographer Gilbert Fowler White.
Again, this has been McRoof Fortifies Oklahoma on Freedom 96.9. I want to thank Retro Radio Randy for keeping everything on time today.
Good job.
Appreciate that. Again, this show will repeat on Sunday afternoon, so if you're listening to this on Sunday afternoon, it won't repeat again. Thank you all very much. We'll see you next week. Vote on Tuesday, if not already.
Have a great week, everybody.
KQOB Enid, Oklahoma City, 2026, a celebration of freedom and the open road.